Almost everyone has experienced it. You're walking into a room. Someone says a sentence, you look around, and suddenly, you're absolutely certain you've lived that exact moment before. Not something similar. The exact moment, the same room, the same people, the same words, the same feeling. For a few seconds, it feels as though time has repeated itself. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it's gone. Most people simply shrug it off. It's just déjà vu. But here's the strange part. Scientists still don't fully agree on why it happens. In fact, one of the most common experiences on Earth is also one of the least understood. Nearly 2 out of every 3 people will experience déjà vu at some point in their lives. Some experience it only once, others experience it several times every year. Yet no one can predict exactly when it will happen, or why. For centuries, people searched for explanations. Some believed it was evidence of past lives. Others thought it was proof that the future already existed. Some even believed it was a glitch in reality itself. And to be honest, when you're experiencing déjà vu, those explanations don't seem completely impossible. Because the feeling is incredibly convincing. It doesn't feel like you're imagining something. It feels like remembering something. That's what makes it so unsettling. Your brain is sending 2 completely opposite messages at the same time. One part of your mind says, "This is happening for the first time." Another part insists, "You've already lived this." Both can't be true. And yet, for a brief moment, they both feel real. To understand why, we first need to understand how memory actually works. Most people imagine memories as files stored inside the brain. Once something happens, it's saved forever. Then later, you simply open the file again. But memory doesn't work like that. Your brain isn't a storage room. It's constantly interpreting, organizing, connecting, and rebuilding information. Every second, millions of signals travel through billions of neurons. Your brain has to decide, almost instantly, what deserves attention and what can safely be ignored. Without that ability, the world would become overwhelming. Imagine trying to consciously notice every sound around you, every color, every smell, every movement, every word spoken nearby. It would be impossible to function, so your brain filters reality. Most of what reaches your senses never reaches your conscious awareness. Only the information your brain considers important moves forward. And that's where things begin to get interesting, because recognizing something as familiar is one of the brain's most important survival tools. Imagine walking through a forest thousands of years ago. You hear a sound in the bushes. Your brain immediately asks a question. Have I experienced this before? If the answer is yes, your chances of surviving increase dramatically. Recognizing danger quickly can save your life. Recognizing food, recognizing faces, recognizing safe places, the ability to recognize familiar patterns became essential for survival. In fact, your brain is constantly comparing the present to everything you've experienced before. Almost like an incredibly fast search engine. Every face you see, every voice you hear, every street you walk down, every room you enter, your brain silently asks, "Have I seen something like this before?" Most of the time, the answer is clear. Either yes or no. But sometimes, something unexpected happens. The system appears to hesitate. For just a fraction of a second, something feels familiar before your brain has fully figured out why. And that's where one of the leading scientific theories begins. Some neuroscientists believe déjà vu isn't a memory at all. Instead, it may be the result of a tiny timing error inside the brain. Imagine 2 nearly identical messages traveling through different paths. Normally, they arrive together. But if one arrives just a fraction of a second before the other, your brain may mistakenly interpret the second signal as something it has already experienced. Not because you've actually lived that moment before, but because one part of your brain processed it slightly earlier than another. The result is a powerful illusion of familiarity, an illusion so convincing that it can briefly override logic itself. But here's the problem. That theory explains some cases, not all of them. Because there are moments when déjà vu feels far too detailed, far too specific to be explained by a simple delay. And that's where the mystery becomes even deeper. Because the more scientists have studied déjà vu, the more they've realized it may not be just one phenomenon at all. One of the biggest clues came from an unexpected place: people living with certain forms of epilepsy. For years, neurologists noticed that some patients experienced an intense feeling of déjà vu, just moments before a seizure. That discovery gave scientists an opportunity they had never had before. For the first time, they could observe what was happening inside the brain while the sensation occurred. The results pointed toward an area known as the temporal lobe, more specifically, regions deeply involved in memory and familiarity. These parts of the brain constantly work together to answer two important questions. Have I experienced this before? And if I have, when did it happen? Normally, those two systems stay perfectly synchronized. One recognizes something as familiar, the other searches for the memory connected to it. But if those systems briefly fall out of sync, something strange can happen. Your brain recognizes familiarity without finding a memory to explain it. It's like hearing a song you know you've heard before, but having no idea where. The feeling remains, the explanation doesn't. That may be why déjà vu often disappears so quickly. Within seconds, the brain realizes there is no matching memory. The illusion collapses, and reality returns. But scientists have proposed another fascinating possibility. Your brain is constantly making predictions about the future, not the distant future. The next second, the next word, the next movement, every moment. Your brain is trying to guess what will happen before it actually does. Most of the time, those predictions are so accurate that you never notice them. But occasionally, your prediction matches reality almost perfectly. When that happens, your brain may briefly confuse a successful prediction with a memory. Not because you've experienced the moment before, but because your brain expected it with remarkable accuracy. It's another reminder that your experience of reality is never a perfect recording. It's a construction. Your brain is constantly building the world you experience, using incomplete information, filling in gaps, ignoring unnecessary details, making educated guesses. Most of the time, it does an extraordinary job. But every now and then, we catch it making a mistake. And perhaps that's exactly what déjà vu is. Not a message from another universe, not proof of a past life, not a glitch in reality, but a tiny glimpse behind the curtain, allowing us to witness the brain's incredible machinery for just a moment. Because under normal circumstances, you never notice your brain deciding what feels familiar. You simply experience the result. Déjà vu reminds us that this process isn't perfect. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating. One brief sensation has inspired philosophers, psychologists, neuroscientists, and ordinary people for centuries. Not because it lasts very long, but because it challenges one of our deepest assumptions, that our perception of reality is always accurate. The truth is, your brain isn't showing you the world exactly as it is. It's showing you the version it believes is most useful. Most of the time, those two things are almost identical. Almost. And every once in a while, for just a few unforgettable seconds, déjà vu reminds us that even our strongest sense of certainty can be nothing more than an extraordinarily convincing illusion. Perhaps that's why the experience feels so unforgettable. Not because you've lived the moment before, but because it briefly reveals something far more mysterious. The human brain is still one of the greatest mysteries we've ever tried to understand. And maybe the strangest part of déjà vu isn't that it makes us question our memories. It's that it reminds us how little we truly know about the mind that creates every moment of our lives.